Welcome back to the Janie Bunch Station,
where we will no longer be bringing you the newest takes on the newest stories.
I'm Mr. Reed Porter, and we will no longer be working here because of Anne.
And I'm Ann Ouncer. Wait, what do you mean? Everything is fine.
No, it's not. Dave is on his way to management right now to get us fired.
Shh, don't worry about it. I have it all figured out. I might have a plan to end Dave's tyrannical reign.
Really? Well, now you piqued my interest.
But we'll probably have to keep quiet in this episode.
Fine by me.
All right, I haven't figured out most of it yet, but here's my plan. So,
tell us later. We have work to do. In the meantime, let's start with the recap.
Wait. Don't start yet.
What is it now?
I just wanted to let you, the audience, know that this episode, you will finally get to vote.
Hey, Jean actually has some useful input. Yes, you can vote by going to our Facebook page, WHS Boosters, the Instagram page, @MurdersInTheAir Podcast, or down in the description to find the Google poll. We'll say this again at the end of the episode.
Now, enjoy this next episode, and I must say, this one will give you chills. The mysteries, the surprises, the suspense. Yes, this episode will be.
Jane, it won't be anything if you give it all away.
Oh, right. Well, speaking of trying to speed things along, one of the fastest places I know is my post office. They always get my letters delivered on time, but not just any post office. Introducing our first sponsor for this episode, the Inspector's Post Offices.
Yes? Hello? Sorry. I have this letter I need to send, and...
Oh, yes, right over here. Nope, the next pile to your left. Oh, no, I mean the one after that. Nope. One more. Oh, and yes, here you are. Hello, what can I do for you?
Well, as I was saying, I have this very important letter I need to send to a friend in elsewhere. Your sign said you got mail out fast.
We are very good at getting things to elsewhere. Now, may I ask how confidential your letter is?
I'm sorry, what?
How confidential are the contents of your letter? It's not like I've got a lot to do in here. I mean, I've got this special set of stamps for my birthday for varying levels of confidentiality, and I've been absolutely dying to use them.
Okay, then.
See, here's the one that says, kinda secret. And this one says, mostly secret. And this one is super secret. This one's my favorite. Top secret, highly confidential government information.
Why exactly do you have those?
Well, you see, the previous mail carrier of the inspector's post office once had one of those top secret, highly confidential government information letters. Lots of problems with that. Something about a repulsive judge and a pompous gas bag, so...
That does sound like a bad thing to read. I'm glad they gave you those stamps.
So as you can see, we are completely qualified to send your mail now.
I mean, I've heard that the inspector's post office is the quickest way to get mail out, but, maybe I should go somewhere else.
Nonsense! Just tell me the level of confidentiality and I can guarantee that your letter won't be read like it was back then. This is a different time. It's been a whole 4 years since that incident.
All right, I'll give you a shot, if only because I really need this letter sent right away.
I promise you will be completely satisfied with our services. The inspector's post offices all over the world pride themselves on their complete and utter respect of your private notes and letters. Stop in any time to have your letter sent anywhere that is elsewhere.
I always use the inspector's post offices when I need to send letters, and I have been sending letters like we did when I was a kid.
But before Jane gets too carried away with the olden days,
Hey!
let's jump into the recap and continue with the show.
can't stand to have anyone see me cry.
You Pensionhurst! You nearly frightened me to death.
I thought you were holding a tiny little marble tournament.
It's Mr. Starkweather.
He's dead.
To summarize, in our last episode, Simon Starkweather was murdered.
Someone put the blood pressure cuff around his neck and strangled him to death.
And remember, throughout the episode, characters were seen with potential murder weapons!
At the very end of the episode, young Simon arrived.
So even though he entered in the last episode, we didn't get a chance to describe him yet.
Simon is a pleasant young man, wearing slacks and a beige pullover sweater.
He's a college student, as mentioned earlier, and is very smart and likable to the staff and most of his family.
His hair is a little messy, as it had been raining.
Corey, they really don't care that much. Just let him talk.
Fine. Bye, everybody.
Let's begin.
Dead. I can't believe Grandfather is dead.
Well, he is, Cousin Simon. He's the deadest person I ever saw.
It's funny you should say that. Pensionhurst and I were just discussing the degrees of dead earlier, and
Mother, please.
And he was murdered?
There's no doubt about it. You saw the body.
Poor Grandfather. If I had got here sooner, maybe...
How do we know you didn't get here sooner?
What?
For all we know, you could have arrived hours ago, parked your car out of sight, slipped into the house, and killed the Lats moments before you killed Simon Starkweather.
That's ridiculous. Why would I kill him?
I'd say a third of a $50 billion fortune is a pretty good reason to knock somebody off. If Mr. Starkweather had signed that new will.
But I didn't know about the new will. I wasn't here when Grandfather revealed that crazy cloning scheme you told me about.
It would have been easy enough to hide outside the French doors and eavesdrop on the conversation.
Why would I hide? I was expected here. I told you what happened.
Tell me again.
All right. I had to creep at a snail's pace on the long country road from town. Rain was lashing so hard I could barely see. The wind was snapping branches off the tree and flinging them against the car. It was like driving through a hurricane. When I got to the wooden bridge that spans the stream which flows around the estate, I had to stop. The stream had turned into a raging river, and it had torn the bridge to pieces. I remembered a place about a mile from there, where a tree had fallen across the stream years ago. I used to play on it as a kid. I found the dead tree and managed to walk across it, even though the rising water nearly covered the truck. Apparently, I got here just after Grandfather was murdered.
That's a good story, but it sounds rehearsed.
Not nearly enough. It's the truth, I swear.
Maybe, but I'm still not crossing you off my suspect list.
And just who else do you have on that list, Mr. Davis?
Everyone in this house except Miss Van Zandt and Miss Collins. They had a heck of a lot to gain if your grandfather had lived only a few more minutes. As it turns out, they're left in the cold.
Especially me. Lois has other clients. Now I'm among the unemployed.
I'm sure, once the estate is settled, we can arrange for you to be given a generous severance check.
And take it out of your portion if you like. And Mother and I will pass, Kathy.
So will I. Nothing personal, of course.
Of course.
Mr. Davis, what do we do now?
Simon's story reminded me. We could play some bridge.
The way I see it, we all sit tight until daybreak. Then I'll have you, Simon, show me the way to your car and drive me into town. I'll report what I know to the police, and we'll notify them that the bridge is out. My guess is the cops will fly in by a helicopter. They'll need to get the body to the coroner's office, examine the crime scene, and take your statements. Once a homicide detective is assigned to the case, I'm out of here.
But you're a detective too. And you were right here when the murder occurred. You have a better chance of solving the murder than anyone else.
I'm sorry, but now that Mr. Starkweather is dead, I'm off the payroll. Once I give the big boys my statement, I'm finished.
I'll hire you to stay. I won't have the money to pay you till I get my portion of the inheritance, but if you're willing to wait.
You're on, kid. I figure you're good for the dough. Incidentally, that offer dropped you down to the bottom of the suspect list. Well, I might as well start earning my salary.
How can we help, Mr. Davis?
First, I want to question everyone as to their whereabouts when Mr. Starkweather was murdered.
Establish everyone's alibis.
Yeah. Also, I need to know anything all of you and the staff might have seen or heard during the last few hours that might lead us to discover the killer's identity.
Clues.
You got it. Motives, alibis, and clues. That's what a detective has to work with. The motives in this case are obvious. The other elements aren't yet, but hopefully they will be by the time I'm finished.
That sounds like a good plan to me. Whom do you want to start with, Mr. Davis?
Since you're paying the freight, call me Mike. How about you, Miss Thompson? Do you mind being first?
I'm awfully tired, Mr. Davis, but if I have to...
You don't have to, Paula. None of us do.
What do you mean, dear?
I mean, Davis isn't a police officer, and we don't have to tell him the time of day.
You're right, Jordan. But why would you refuse to cooperate? Unless you have something to hide.
Now look, Simon, don't start accusing me of murder unless you can prove it.
Simon has a point. Do you want me to tell the cops everyone except you?
Oh, all right. I'll answer your dumb questions, but first I'm going to take Mother upstairs and have her lie down until you're ready for her. She's getting up in years and she needs her rest.
Why, thank you very much, Jordan. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, but I'm not Mrs. Methuselah either.
Don't get excited, Mother. Are you okay? Do you need your digitalis?
No, but if I did, there's probably 1 or 2 pills still underneath the sofa. I had a little accident with my pill bottle.
Come on. You can call when you're ready for us, Mike.
I assume you'll want to question everyone in private? You can wait in my room with me if you like, Kathy. I want to read over the old will again, since it will remain the official one.
Sure, Lois. Excuse us, everyone.
I'd like to stay. Since I wasn't here earlier, hearing everyone's statements would give me a clearer picture of what happened tonight at Starkweather Mansion.
You're the boss now. I'm particularly interested in what happened between the time Mr. Starkweather announced he was changing his will and the time his body was discovered.
How long was that?
Several hours. Well, Miss Thompson, did you observe anything which occurred in that time frame that might help us?
Well, Mr. Davis, Simon, I was very disappointed by Great Uncle Simon's announcement, as you might well imagine. I mean, I can understand why you might want to clone Dwayne Johnson, but Great Uncle Simon? No offense, Cousin Simon, but your grandfather was not a very nice person. Anyway, I spent most of that time in my room, but I did come downstairs once on, a little errand. I was outside the kitchen door when I heard Minerva and that cute little maid Nancy talking.
What's the matter with you, girl? Did you leave your mind in the other room? You haven't heard a word I said.
I'm sorry, Minerva. I'm so confused.
But what? Has that no-good scamp, Jordan, been bothering you?
Jordan? I mean, Mr. Starkweather? What makes you think that?
When I walked in on you two in the living room, you were standing mighty close together, real lovey-dovey like. What was he saying to you?
I think he wanted me to
do something you didn't want to do?
Yes, but it's not what you're thinking.
I'll bet he'd better stay away from you. If that boy tries anything, I'll cut him down to size.
Minerva, no! He's not interested in me. I heard him with Miss Collins.
Ha! I get the picture. When you lost your million, he lost interest in you, didn't he? He's following the money right to the Collins girl, isn't he?
He proposed to her, but she laughed at him.
Good for her. Serves him right, that lazy bum.
Don't call him that!
Ha! You're hung up on him, aren't you? Don't be a fool, Nancy. Jordan would just use you and toss you aside like he's done a dozen other girls I know of.
Maybe he's willing to settle down now. If Mr. Starkweather hadn't changed his will, Jordan would be free to...
Free to do what?
Nothing. If we're finished, I'd like to go to my room now.
Go on. Nancy?
Yes, ma'am?
Lock your door.
Director again. So that dialogue you just heard between Nancy and Minerva was Paula's flashback to overhearing Nancy and Minerva's conversation in the kitchen. You'll be hearing this sound when a flashback is happening. After the flashback happens, Mike usually starts a new interview, and you'll hear this sound.
I'm sure the audience can figure this out on their own.
Well, you can never be too sure. You know how hard this has been to go digital with this play, and sometimes things don't translate, and...
All right, calm down. Drink some Lord's water. You're okay.
Those two are really asking for it.
Let's just try to get back on track. So tell me, Miss Trent, did you see or hear anything suspicious earlier tonight before Mr. Starkweather was murdered?
Suspicious? I suppose you'd call toting a gun around the house suspicious, even though Mr. Starkweather wasn't shot to death.
A gun? Who has a gun?
Besides me.
Paula Thompson, that's who. Claims she's a regular Annie Oakley. She mentioned how easy it would be for somebody to come through the French doors and kill Mr. Starkweather.
Did she now?
Ask her yourself.
Anything else?
I did happen to overhear a rather odd conversation between Rufus and Mrs. Starkweather. I had gone upstairs to distribute candles to everyone in case of a power outage, which turned out to be very useful, as you know. I was about to turn the corridor onto the west wing when I saw Mrs. Starkweather at the far end near the stairs.
Do I have enough? Oh dear.
Miss Starkweather.
Rufus, you nearly scared me out of a year's growth.
That's okay, ma'am. At our age, we do all growing sideways, don't we?
I certainly hope not. What are you doing with that television set? It doesn't look like a portable.
It is now. I'm borrowing from one of the guest rooms that ain't in use.
Whatever for?
Well, see, I ain't sleepy, so I thought I'd watch some TV. But one of the set in my room is all messed up. The color, I mean. Everybody on the Dad Blam channel is green. Joe Exotic is green. Tina Fey is green, even. Nick Kroll is green. It looks like every station is starring Kermit the Frog.
Oh, how disconcerting.
You can say that again, whatever it means. Are them breath mints? I wouldn't mind a few. I can still taste that crap Minerva served the staff for supper.
These? Oh no, Rufus, you mustn't take any of these. They're for my heart. If you ate any of these pills, they could kill you.
In that case, I'll pass. You better be careful not to leave them lying around, though. If somebody could eat a bunch by mistake and keel over dead.
That's entirely possible.
What would you put on the death certificate? Cause of death? Bad breath.
It isn't a laughing matter. I'll be careful with them. I need these pills, you see. I need every one of them.
Rufus had an axe in the house?
Yes, Master Simon. I'd instructed him to chop some firewood earlier.
I'm surprised you trust him with an axe.
Personally, I wouldn't trust him with a butter knife. I was simply relaying what Mr. Starkweather's instructions were.
Was there anything else of interest you happened to notice?
Just one, sir. Earlier tonight, I was coming from the kitchen when I saw Master Jordan at the door to Mr. Starkweather's room. The hall door, not the one you're looking at. His behavior was somewhat furtive. I got the impression he was about to enter when the door opened and Miss Withers came out. It was apparent her unexpected appearance startled Master Jordan.
Well, what do you want?
I was going to check on Great Uncle Simon.
No need. That's what I'm paid to do.
How is he?
Still breathing, if that's what you're wondering about.
How much time do you think he has left, Miss Withers?
Let's just say he needn't start reading any long novels, or even a short story.
But you think he'll make it through the night?
I think Mr. Starkweather will keep his heart beating through sheer determination, long enough to sign that new will. That is what you want to know, isn't it?
Why, you misjudge me, Miss Withers.
Give it a rest, Jordan. You'd love to see him drop dead before daybreak, just like nearly everyone else in this house.
Including you. $1 million is a fortune. A lot of people would kill for that much money.
If that's a hint, forget it. As Mr. Starkweather's nurse, I'd be the prime suspect if his death appeared to be anything but by natural causes.
Suspecting and proving are two different things.
I'm going to forget you said that. Good night, Jordan. It's true. Jordan Starkweather did hint that I was in a position to end his great-uncle's life in a way that would appear natural. I assume Bensonhurst also told you that I refused?
He did, but you could have changed your mind.
And then killed him with the blood pressure cuff? That would have been foolish. Hardly what you'd call by natural causes.
I agree. The manner by which he was murdered makes no sense at all, whoever did it.
It's as if the killer was flaunting the deed in our face.
Why would they do that?
That's a good question. Tell me, Miss Withers, if you had to pick a likely suspect to be our murderer, who would it be?
Off the record?
Mm-hmm.
That Thompson girl, his great niece, is too goody-goody for my tastes. Oh, those southern girls can pour on the charm when they want to, but Scarlett O'Hara was pretty ruthless when you get down to it.
We've been told Cousin Paula has a gun.
See what I mean? I dare say she and Jordan both were desperate to get their hands on Mr. Starkweather's billions. I overheard them talking earlier this evening. It was shortly after Ms. Van Zant's announcement about the new will. They didn't notice me in the corridor.
Well, what are we going to do?
Do? What can we do? It's out of our hands.
Don't be such a whip, Cousin Jordan. That money rightfully belongs to us. There's gotta be a way to get it.
I know. Maybe we can break the will if we have Great Uncle Simon declared insane.
I've thought of that, but it won't work. If cloning was just a wild theory, we probably could. But it isn't. It's been done. His plan to be the first person to clone himself might be bizarre, but it isn't insane. We'd lose the case.
And probably spend the pittance we're going to inherit on the lawyers.
Like that Miss Van Zant. Ooh! She...
What is it? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking, if you can't beat him, join him.
Huh?
I just came up with a way to get Miss Van Zant to put me on her team.
What is it?
Fend for yourself, Jordan. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to talk to that lawyer.
If you can't beat him... Oh, yeah. Now, where would Kathy be?
It's true. Jordan did suggest we get married. It wasn't what you would call a romantic proposal. It was more like a business proposition.
You are going to have access to billions. What did Jordan have to offer you?
Himself, I guess. In my opinion, that fortune hunter wouldn't be worth 2 cents.
Then you did turn him down.
Jordan is a is attractive in a swarmy sort of way. But any woman who married him would be a fool. And believe me, Mike, I'm no fool.
I knew that from the time we started working together.
You were smart enough to volunteer to carry grandfather's clone.
Look, Simon, once Mr. Starkweather made up his mind to clone himself, nothing was going to change it. He would have found a surrogate mother somewhere, so it might as well have been me.
I understand. I just think the whole idea was creepy.
You're a lot nicer about it than the other heirs were.
For example?
Paula, for one. She hadn't given up hope of getting her hands on Mr. Starkweather's money.
How do you know?
I was in Lois's room with her when Paula knocked on her door. She asked Lois to step into the corridor where she could speak to her in private. Lois went out with her. She didn't close the door completely, so I couldn't help but overhear their conversation.
We're very busy, Miss Thompson.
Preparing that new will?
Yes.
Miss Van Zandt, you're a lawyer. Are you sure this cloning business is legal? You could lose your license to practice, couldn't you, if you carry on?
The process will be performed in Belgium, as we told you. Our laws don't apply there.
What about ethics? Haven't lawyers been disbarred before for behavior that was unethical, if not illegal?
What's your point?
I want in on the deal. You can pay me from that trust fund to be the baby's nanny or whatever. I don't care what you name the position. But if you refuse, I shall be forced to report you to the Bar Association. Isn't that what you call it?
It is. Let me give you a little free legal advice, Miss Thompson. In the first place, if you make any accusations against me before the cloning procedure has been completed successfully, I'll sue you for the $50,000 you're due to receive and everything else you own, and I'll get it. In the second place, once the baby is on the way, I plan to close down my office. I shall devote all my time to Kathy and little Simon's care. At that point, it wouldn't bother me in the least if I should be disbarred. You don't have to be a lawyer to administer an estate. Anyone can do it.
Oh.
So you see, Paula, your threats are meaningless. In fact, as an officer of the court, I should report your feeble attempt at extortion to the police.
I wasn't...
Save it. Take your silly southern self out of my sight, and I might be willing to forget it.
All right, I'll go, you lawyer.
Okay. One teeny tiny cut-in before we go.
Mrs. Trent enters here with a Ziploc bag full of candles.
In the bag, there are 5 green candles, 5 white candles, and 1 red candle.
Excuse me.
Yes, Miss Trent?
I found what's left of the Christmas candles I stored away. I thought it might be a good idea to pass them out in case of a power failure. I suggest you keep one and some matches nearby.
That's very thoughtful. Thank you. Kathy's in my room. I'll take one for her, too.
Lois takes a green candle. Then she grabs a white one for Kathy.
Miss Thompson?
Oh, all right.
She takes a... Okay, this is getting ridiculous. You guys are just as bad as Jean. I don't even see why you're here in this episode anyways. Didn't you say you were leaving?
We are very important to the storyline.
Yeah, what Reed said.
I think it'd just be best if you left for good. We've got it from here.
But...
You know what? Fine! I have an idea that will save our jobs anyway. Reed, Corey, come with me.
Whatever. Let's go. Continue.
Wow, you're really good at that. Where are we?
You were just taking a candle.
Oh, right. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to my room. There's something there I need to get.
What's the matter with her?
Let's just say she's a poor loser. Miss Thompson played her ace, and I trumped it, in a manner of speaking. I'll give this candle to Kathy.
If I remember correctly, when Kathy Collins saw Mrs. Starkweather's body and screamed, you ran the front door. What had you been doing outside, Rufus?
Was I outside? Yup, I guess I was. I remember now. I had bought a TV from the guest room because...
We heard
well,
why, Rufus.
You did? News sure travels fast round here.
All the actors on your set were green.
Sure was. Looked like the Martians had landed or something. Anyways, when I hooked up the new TV set, the picture didn't come in too good. Everybody was fuzzy as a woolly worm. I went outside to try and turn the antenna around.
On the roof?
Well, it wouldn't do much good to put it in the basement, would it? I was about to get the tall ladder out of the storage shed when I heard the gal holler bloody murder. Murder, anyways, even if it wasn't bloody.
Did you see or hear anything else?
I saw an owl and heard a bunch of bullfrogs.
I meant humans.
I saw Mr. Jordan on the patio when I was coming in. Don't know what he was doing out there.
Earlier tonight, Rufus. Did you hear anyone talking about the new will?
Who didn't? Minerva and old Bensonhurst didn't talk about much else. They was going on about in the kitchen before Mr. Starkweather croaked.
What were they saying?
That it ain't fair, that's what. That they had worked hard for Mr. Starkweather all these years and should have got their millions. Me? I don't care too much. I figured 50,000 would buy me a new TV with a big screen. I guess now I might even get me two.
Bensonhurst and Minerva.
Oh, yeah. The more Minerva thought about it, the madder she got. And woo! That woman's got a temper. She was about ready to storm into Mr. Starkweather's room and give him a piece of her mind.
You mustn't go up there, Minerva.
Who's gonna stop me?
I shall, if necessary.
You and whose army?
Listen, I totally agree with you that we were wronged, but a confrontation is not the answer.
Oh yeah? Then what is?
Have patience. Mr. Starkweather hasn't signed the will yet. Perhaps he'll change his mind by morning.
We should live so long.
No, Minerva. He should live so long.
So what were you doing outside about the time of the murder, Mr. Starkweather?
Just getting a breath of fresh air. Anything wrong with that?
Not if you remained outside.
What do you mean?
When I made a cursory examination of the crime scene, I noticed that Miss Withers had left the window raised a couple of inches to let in some of that fresh air. Anyone could have climbed in and...
Are you accusing me of killing Great Uncle Simon?
Calm down, Mrs. Starkweather. I'm not accusing anybody. Yet.
Besides, from what we've heard, Cousin Jordan, it seems that trying to con someone else into doing your bidding is more your style.
Who told you that?
I'll ask the questions if you don't mind. I repeat, what were you doing outside?
If you must know, Kathy and I had a disagreement, and I blew up. I went out to cool off, or have you already heard about that?
I question, you answer, remember? Let me ask you this. If you didn't murder Mr. Starkweather, who do you think did?
Well, look, I'm not saying she did it, but have you talked to that little maid, Nancy?
Why her, Cousin Jordan?
The girl has a crush on me. I flirt with the ladies a lot, but I did nothing to lead her on. I know she was upset about the new will. Not just that she would lose her money, but that I would lose even more.
Hold up. Stop the show. Hi, it's your boy, Lightning Guy. My buddy Ann entrusted me with playing this recording she made for the scene, so...
Hey, Anne here. This is a recording I made just in case I was executing my plan. Well, this scene is happening. Before we start this next flashback, I just gotta say, Jordan is a nasty man. He is misogynistic, rude, and horrible to women. And we at the Janie Bunch station will not stand for this. This is just...
I'm gonna have to stop this recording here. Although I do agree with all of her points, she went on for an hour yelling about how she hates Jordan, and I don't think that's needed. So thank you, Owen, for playing that for her. Please continue, Joe.
I had strolled around the house and was outside the kitchen door when I heard Nancy talking to Miss Wither.
Can I do something for you, Miss Withers?
I needed fresh water to put by Mr. Starkweather's bedside. I got it.
That poor man. When he had the attack and lost his breath in the living room, I realized what you meant before when you said the slightest shock could prove to be fatal.
Exactly.
The slightest shock. His bell.
I must go.
Yes. We wouldn't want anything to happen to him, would we? Mr. Davis, I was shocked when I heard Mr. Starkweather had included me in his will. I didn't even think he noticed me.
You must have received 2 surprises. To hear you'd inherit $1 million, and then immediately discover it was being taken away.
3 surprises, actually. Now you're wealthy again.
Oh, Mr. Starkweather, I was thrilled to be told your grandfather was leaving me even $50,000. With that, I could go to college, like you, and get a good education.
Now you can do anything you want, Nancy. What do you want to do?
I don't know. I haven't been thinking much about myself.
Who has been on your mind, Nancy? Jordan Starkweather, perhaps? You're very fond of him, aren't you?
Who told you that?
Cousin Jordan himself, for one. He implied you might even been willing to kill for him.
He what? How could he say such a thing?
I'm sorry to hurt you, Nancy, but now you see what Jordan's really like. He's out for himself, and he'll trample anyone who gets in his way.
I guess I knew that. Minerva tried to warn me. I even heard him propose to Miss Collins. She turned him down, then later laughed about it when she told her friend, Miss Van Zandt. I was taking fresh towels to the guest rooms. Later, when I heard them talking. You think Jordan is cold-hearted, but Miss Collins is just as bad as he is.
Can you believe it? Those soulful gazes might work on some innocent young thing like that maid Nancy. But he learned quick enough that I'm no pushover.
I wish I could have been there to see it. It's time Jordan met his match. I could tell Nancy about some of the maids who worked here before her. His Playboy days will be over soon enough, though.
What do you mean?
Well, up until now, Mr. Starkweather has given Jordan, as well as Fiona, Paula, and young Simon, a generous allowance. Once he passes on, the $50,000 bequest will be the last they get of the Starkweather fortune. They'll have to learn what it's like to work for a living.
Simon's almost out of school. He'll do fine. But the others? They'll go through their money in no time. Then what kind of jobs can they get? Can you picture Paula behind the desk of a car rental agency?
Or Jordan driving the cars out of the lot for customers.
And what will Fiona do? Sell them on?
Can I get you anything, Cousin Fiona? A glass of water?
Oh, no, dear, I'm fine. Mr. Davis, I want you to know that my Jordan couldn't have done, oh dear, what was done to Uncle Simon. He was with me in my room all evening.
You know that can't be true, Mrs. Starkweather. Your son told us himself he went outside, and I saw you in here earlier with Bensonhurst and Miss Withers.
Oh, that's right. Maybe that was last night he sat with me.
Maybe it was.
Now I know why Jessica Fletcher never believed the suspects on Murder, She Wrote. It's so easy to get confused.
Concentrate on tonight, Mrs. Starkweather. Do you recall seeing anything suspicious?
Suspicious? Well, I saw Uncle Simon's body with that horrible thing around his neck. I'd call that suspicious.
Mike means before that, Cousin Fiona.
Before? Let me think. I don't know if this is the sort of thing that you mean, but
Yes?
it was right after we were told about the new will and had all gone upstairs. I was going past that secretary's door when I heard the housekeeper and her inside. They were speaking quite loudly, so I couldn't help but overhear.
What are you doing in my room, Mrs. Trent?
I was checking all of the guest rooms to make sure there are extra blankets in each. I suppose you're very pleased with yourself, Miss Collins.
Why do you say that?
It all worked out just as you planned.
I don't know what you mean.
I think you do. I understand now why you brought all those magazines from town and left them lying around where Mr. Starkweather would see them. You've done it for months.
What magazines?
Don't play dumb, Miss Collins. Those news magazines and scientific journals, I've seen them. They all had one thing in common, articles about cloning. I didn't realize until tonight, but now it's obvious what you were doing. You planted the idea in Mr. Starkweather's head to clone himself.
What if I did? There are no laws against sharing ideas, are there?
I'm sure your lawyer friend would say no, since you're in this together. That doesn't mean it's right. I think what you're planning to do is hideous.
To be perfectly frank, I couldn't care less what you think. Get out!
Starting to give orders already, are you? I'll leave. But remember one thing, young woman. You are not the queen bee yet, and you won't be until Mr. Starkweather's name is on the dotted line, assuming that ever happens.
Kathy told me about Miss Trent's accusations, that she engineered the cloning business, possibly with my help. Apparently, Mrs. Starkweather reported their conversation accurately, which is something of a surprise.
Is it true? Did you and Kathy give grandfather the idea to clone himself?
I don't really think that's relevant to the case at hand, Simon. Even if we did, we weren't breaking any laws. Don't you agree, Mr. Davis?
No laws that I can think of.
Then shouldn't we focus on the law that was broken? I'm referring to the murder, of course.
You're right as usual, Miss Van Zandt. Can you volunteer any information that might help us?
I will tell you this. Earlier this evening, I was going to the kitchen to ask Minerva for a pot of coffee. It was apparent that Kathy and I were going to be working late, and I felt the caffeine might help us stay awake. Minerva wasn't there, but Rufus was. I heard him talking to Fiona Starkweather. Their conversation was very peculiar.
Good heavens, Rufus! What are you doing with that axe?
I brought it from the wood pile to dry it off good. Sharpened it up too. Wanna see?
Goodness, no! Put it away!
Maybe I better, before it hurts somebody, or even kills them.
That's a horrible thought.
Ain't it though? I get those sometimes. Do you?
I
see you still got your poison pills.
Digitalis isn't poison. It's a stimulant. You just have to be careful not to take too many.
You had a lot more in the bottle when I saw you upstairs. Oops. I hope you haven't done gone and overdosed. I think I can figure out how to do that mouth-to-mouth stuff.
If you bring those lips any closer, I'll snatch that axe out of your hands and chop them off.
Just trying to help, Mrs. Starkweather.
Well, don't. There are some fates worse than death. I assure you, however, that I am fine. I spilled the pills earlier in the living room and I wasn't able to find them all.
I hope Minerva don't find none. She fixes Mrs. Starkweather's meals, and she's mighty mad at him right now.
What are you suggesting?
Oh, nothing. Was there something you needed in the kitchen?
I came to see if Minerva had any of those delicious hors d'oeuvres left over.
I can look.
And never mind. I seem to have lost my appetite.
Mr. Starkweather's meals. What do you want to know about them?
Who did he dine with? Did he eat the same food as everyone else?
Mr. Starkweather was on a very restricted diet. Low salt, low fat, so I had to prepare his meals separately. Why do you want to know about the food? Is there something wrong with my cooking?
You're a great cook, Minerva. The leg of lamb you served tonight was wonderful.
Yes, well, I've often been told I have terrific legs, so what's the problem?
Forget it. You told me what I need to know. Changing the subject, do you remember who was in the kitchen when the circuit breaker tripped and the lights went out? Before I got there, I mean.
The blackouts. I'm not sure. Let me think. I was in the pantry, checking the supplies for breakfast. When it went dark, it took me a moment to get the candle Miss Trent gave me from my pocket and light it.
Minerva, Nancy, is everyone all right?
I'm here and I'm fine. I was out back when I saw the lights go out.
I was in my room when everything went dark. What happened?
Bensonhurst forgot to pay the light bill.
Keep that up and I'll forget to pay your wages.
What in the blazes is going on?
Apparently the storm knocked out the electricity. My candles did come in handy, you see.
Remind me to give you a gold star later. Bensonhurst, can't you get the electricity back on?
What I came to find out. Mr. Bensonhurst?
The circuit breaker is right over there.
I hope they hurry. I don't like the dark.
That quick enough for you? I'll get back to my chore.
What did he come inside for? The idiot tracked water all over my clean floor.
Why Mr. Starkweather doesn't fire him, I'll never know.
Any luck?
Yeah, it was there all right. It should be enough to pinpoint our murderer, but I wish I had more. It could take weeks and weeks to get the results. If the will is probated and the killer gets his or her inheritance before then, they could disappear for good. You can buy a new identity easily enough for $1 million or more. There must be some way I can nab the guilty party tonight.
Ugh. I was hoping we'd learn more from questioning the suspects.
Me too. They were so busy trying to make each other look guilty, they didn't even reveal much about themselves. Sometimes the slightest. Simon, move your feet.
What is it?
Here, on the rug. I think it's... Yes, what they were doing was so insignificant, I barely noticed it at the time. Simon, I know who murdered your grandfather.
Whoa, how can he know already? It seems too soon to know. Then again, this is the third of 4 episodes? Wow, 3 episodes in. This is such a long journey we've gone on. It reminds me of when I traveled to Thebes and managed to convince a gorgeous jewelry store to sponsor our podcast. So, without further ado, our last sponsor for this episode, Sophocles Bracelets. You know that feeling when you're like searching for the perfect gift for your friend, but you just can't find it?
When you're on an exotic vacation and you promise
there. So, we're here to provide a solution to your problem.
Come right into our incredible, new, one-of-a-kind souvenir jewelry store, Sophocles Bracelets.
We are located in famous locations all over the globe, including Cairo, Rome, Paris, Bangkok, Toronto, and many, many others. But our most popular storefront is in Thebes.
Originally created and run by an uncle and his 2 nieces, our bracelets are made with only the finest stones and shells we can find.
Yeah, and if you think we're just like all those other fake tourist trap souvenir shops that you find in places like Los Angeles, think again.
Our bracelets are created using twine, made from the bark of an olive tree grown in Greece. And each of the beads put on the bracelet is created from a shell or stone found in the city our shop is located in.
We pride ourselves in the fact that our bracelets are 100% authentic.
It's the perfect gift to give to anyone. So, if you ever wanted to carry a piece of your vacation with you at all time, come and order one of our bracelets now.
Thank you to our friends over at Sophocles Bracelets for sponsoring us. You can go to their website, sophoclesbracelets.com, and use the promo code Jean is the best director, in all caps, for 3% off your first order of $300.
I think this is as good a time as ever to stop this episode.
What? Now, really?
Yes, now is the perfect time to stop so that the audience can vote on who the murderer is.
Oh, yes, of course, my favorite part. And now, listeners, here is the long-awaited time to vote on who the murderer is. You can vote by going to our Facebook page, WHS Boosters, the Instagram page at Murders in the Air Podcast, or down in the description of this video to find the poll. And since the reporters aren't here, I guess we get to sign off.
Guys, we did a thing! And get back here! I just want to be clear by saying I did not agree to this.
Me too! After we heard Anne's plan, we tried to talk her out of it, but she just kept on...
What happened? You did a thing? Did quarantine finally get to you and you decided to cut and dye your hair?
Yeah, like everyone on Instagram. And wait, where's Dave? Wait, oh no.
I tied him up. He can't fire us if he's being held hostage in the studios. I caught him trying to snitch on us to management.
What now?
That's what I said.
You can't just...
That's what I said.
But what happens when?
We're all going to get fired, possibly arrested, maybe even jailed for a minimum of 5 years or so for second-degree kidnapping.
Basically, we're all screwed.
All? I didn't even.
Hey, you're in this as much as we are now.
Yeah, you're not gonna hurt him, right?
Hurt him? Of course not. I just wanted to help save our jobs.
We're still going to jail, but thanks for tuning into the
Janie Bunch Radio. Oh, shush! See you later.